Hello, I'm Jeremy, one of your co-hosts. We'll figure out that later. And with me, I have,
Oh, me.
yeah, you,
I'm Mike. I'm the northernmost host.
the northernmost host, the
Yeah.
host with the most from the north,
Yeah.
however that
Yep.
goes. So, what is this podcast supposed to be about?
I think it's so that we can drink beer, but
Yeah, that sounds about right.
but maybe a little less specifically. Um, Actually, probably try. For me, I guess it's going to be probably so I can try the different types of beer and actually understand what they are and what they mean. Because like the worst thing I do is go to a bar and like I'm like, well, I'll just have the Bud Light, and I'm kind of like trying to get out and away from that. So I think that
Yeah, for sure.
opening up my horizons, and I feel like you've done quite a bit of research in your journey to finding out what beers are and why they are and how they make them.
Yeah, for sure. I guess a little bit more about my background. I mean, I'm also a home brewer. I've been doing that for about what, almost 2 years, a little over 2 years now. So I have dabbled with a few different styles and variations of beers. So I think for this podcast, I think what would be interesting is to like what Mike was saying was trying to figure out what new styles we can find and what makes styles a style. Like how did like porters come about? How where the stouts come from, and all the way to your farmhouse ales, all the way to like you said Bud Light. You know what makes Bud Light so popular? Maybe we could dabble in that realm one day. So that being said, who is this podcast for? So I think this podcast is really for anybody that enjoys beer, of course, or the individual who's curious about beers. You know, they may not actually like beer, but they maybe just be curious maybe about the different styles, like I said earlier, maybe some of the history and stuff like that. So it'd be nice if we could figure out some of that stuff, maybe bring that forth.
Are
Maybe
you
kind of
saying
fun.
that might be beer curious?
Beer curious, yes, yes, most definitely. I like that. We should patent that one right there, right?
Yeah, I think that ultimately this podcast is for us, right? Like I want to have a good time and just kind of
Yeah.
like hang out with you in
Oh,
basically what we do anyway, but in more of a formal setting. Well, formal in that we are recording it, but ultimately I think that I would just like to kind of capture some of
mhm.
these memories, if at the very least we get to go back and look at like, oh my God, you remember in on like March 10th, 2023? What an idiot. So
Oh gosh, that was horrible. Yeah. I guess I do want to throw a little disclaimer out there. I mean, this is definitely going to be more of an adult-oriented podcast.
yeah,
I
I
guess we should
probably already
rub that at
swore.
the
I don't even
beginning.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I'm so bad for that.
Parental
I
advisory sticker
apologize, but I
somewhere on
don't.
here.
Yeah, for sure. I think. Oh, that's a good question. I need to go check Anchor and see if that is put on for adult only. I do have underneath the food category. Uh, I wasn't sure where else to put it because nothing else really popped up that matched the beer or drinking or alcohol. So food would come up. So
I feel
maybe
like
we'll
just the
talk about
subject
it
of
later.
alcohol in general is an adult subject, regardless of like
Yeah, it's
profanities.
true.
Technically,
True,
I think
true,
that we
true.
would have to if we stream or post it on YouTube.
Mhm.
I think that we would have to kind of cut back on swearing, otherwise they demonetize them if that ever comes up, kind of stuff.
Ooh,
So
yeah,
that's
that is true. I forgot about that. That's a
yeah,
new
that's
thing,
a
isn't it?
yeah, yeah. So like I've had one of the guys I watch play 7 days. He can't say
Mhm.
the full title anymore because the last word in that title
The other D word.
demonetizes
Yeah.
him. Yeah. So if you don't know what that is, you can look it up.
Wow.
That I guess brings us to another kind of point. The friendship that we have is mainly kind of blossomed through gameplay essentially. So like
Yeah.
we've been friends for over 20 years, but been in different states for the better part of 20 years. So it's been hard to really kind of reconnect. And until I want to say recently, but it's been quite a few years that internet's
Mhm.
existed in a way where you could have basically video chats. But the pandemic, I think, kind of opened up our need to, or at least my need to, like physically see somebody when I'm talking to them. Because otherwise, up until this point, limiting factors being internet speeds and stuff like that too, I guess. But I haven't really been on camera very much, and I've gotten very used to basically being on camera all the time, especially when you and I
Right.
talk. So I think that
For sure.
helps really kind of ease the tension in a conversation. Just be recorded makes no difference, really. It's weird to see me in like 4 different places. But...
yeah. So we did have a missed opportunity. We actually met up a couple weeks ago. I was actually up in Michigan more for work related. We were supposed to start this then, and well, ice storm came through and kind of stopped everything for the most part.
Yeah, we lost power for, I think we have a generator, but we lost power, which ended up essentially losing internet, and hotspotting from our phones was not going to be something that we would be able to do, at least not in any kind of way. But we lost it for like 64 hours or something. It was probably the worst that we'd ever had, and it just happened to be the same week that you're up here. So 3 of the 7 days you were here were essentially internetless, which was fine. We ended up playing board games and stuff, so I enjoyed that part. Yeah, we drank a hell of a lot.
Tasty beverages for sure. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I do have one other thing I kind of want to bring up. Just some notes I jotted down. So is this podcast going to be mainly about beer? So I wrote this answer as yes and no. Although mainly about beer. There's other topics I would like to talk about, like home brewing, because I love home brewing.
That's still beer.
It is still beer. So I guess it is just about beer at the end of the day.
I think that I think that the conversation.
There we go.
Yeah, I think that the conversation is going to potentially evolve, regardless. Especially when we get into any of the barrel aged series. That might be like an hour-long podcast of just us trying to drink one of those big-ass tall boys by ourselves. But
they can be. They're rough. They're good. They're rough.
Yeah. So I think that I want to. So I guess the format, and we haven't really established this, and I feel like it's going to be more organic than anything, just because if it's not organic, I can't just read off of a teleprompter essentially and make it very good.
Good stuff, right? Complete like silence is what we don't want in a podcast,
right? So yeah.
I guess I'm a little tad bit more structured, I guess, in this sense. I mean, I gotta have some bullet points because I feel like I can just go off topic really easily and I have a hard time coming back on topic. This won't be scripted at all. There may be some starter points to kind of get the conversation started, but other than that, I feel like I think it'll just blossom like most of our talks do anyways.
Right, and if there's any kind of popularity to it too, like the potential for just a fan or somebody that isn't us to like suggest something that we would have never thought of would be awesome to me. Like ultimately any kind of feedback, good, bad, or the otherwise, is going to be helpful in this kind of a situation. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to really kind of just kind of explore, for mainly for my sake and our sake, is just to explore the different flavors of beer and in anything really. I mean, we don't necessarily need to be a beer specific thing, but I feel like that's going to be the easiest. And that's so I guess our thought process was like maybe to have like 1 or 2 beers on the podcast, like drink a beer. So however long it takes to drink a beer, and that'll determine whether or not like we would continue on with the second beer or whatever. But so I think that the structure that we'd kind of agreed on, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we would try and stay with a style. So the next podcast style, we would have a beer of that style, and then maybe a beer that's similar to that style if we wanted to keep drinking for the night or whatever. But try and, if we can, try and get one of the same beers. So like if we are able to get it in our, because Michigan versus the South have different beers and different styles and different times of year for their beer and stuff. So that might be it. I mean, like obviously we can get like a Bud Light or whatever, but we can't get like so up here there's like Founders and things like that, which is a lot harder to get down there. Besides like maybe their generic ones that might be distributed down there. So
yeah, I can get the generic ones. So anything that's like a high ABV is really hard to come across, because where I live in Tennessee, and Tennessee has a unique law. If it's over 10.1 or 10.2%, it has to be sold in the liquor store. So, and a lot of liquor stores don't want to take up space for high gravity beer that may not sell. So I have to go to like specialty stores, which are a couple hours away, but it's whatever.
Yeah. So I think that trying to do that is going to be both not difficult so much as trying to line them up. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult than I really anticipated. So I think that if we do, we might have to like have something that's close enough, or whatever in this style, so that we can kind of compare and contrast. But there are, and Jeremy, you got that list together, and it is enormous with a bunch of descriptions of like all the kind of beer, and I'm like, uh-oh. It's going to be like a yearly thing, and that's why I'm like, maybe just one per thing, because then we can save the next one for a year from now and see if our taste buds change. Because I think that that's also happening to me. Like, I feel like I've definitely, my tastes have definitely changed. Because I used to be a Captain and Coke drinker.
It's delicious. I still love it.
And then I was just lazy and didn't want to mix the damn things all the time, so I moved to like beer. I just went from Captain Coke to just straight Bud Light, because I was just lazy, but I hated beer up until that point. And and this was at like 20, I think I was like 26 or 27 when I just gave up and started drinking Bud. Well, the bar that I went to had 3 taps. It was like an Irish bar, so they had Guinness, which I don't really love. I don't dislike it as much as I used to, but I don't love it. I don't know, we'll get into that some other time. And then Bass, and then they had Miller Lite, Bud Light, and I think Budweiser.
Probably PBR. Oh, Budweiser. Okay.
No, I think they had like straight Budweiser. And I was like, oh.
Wow, that's interesting.
So I just like gave up and just drank that. And that was so I'm just like, all right, well, I'll just do this, because it was like $5 for a 32-ounce pitcher of it, and I was like, guess I'm getting drunk here.
So that might be a fun topic to bring up. They could just be like an off topic, just talk about like our younger years, because granted, we're in our 40s now. So I could tell you stories like 20 years ago going to like certain bars and spending X amount of money on like a pitcher of beer, right? I think that'd be a fun topic just to kind of shoot this shit on. Hey, heck, even just go buy a 6-pack of Bud Light. That's what I was drinking back then as well, too, right? Just, this is Bud, because I don't hardly ever touch a Bud Light. I may do a Coors once in a while, but that's about it for my light beers.
Yeah, I think that I guess that's another decision we need to make. I don't know if necessarily right now is the best time to do it, but what frequency that we were going to do this in. I felt like weekly, maybe a little bit ambitious. But I was thinking if we did weekly and a month had five weeks in it, or 5 Fridays or whatever in it, then we could make that 5th Friday like a special episode kind of thing. Because I think that if we were to do this and it only takes us a half an hour to record an episode, that's not really going to impact our night, and we're basically doing this as much as we do it anyway. So I'm okay with doing that. I just don't know what your thoughts were on that.
No, that's we definitely got it. I'm sure that'd be like an offline topic. We'll figure out like how often are these gonna be released. Like I said, I think weekly is definitely super ambitious, but if we can get a backlog, then we probably could do it.
Yeah, I think that there is a.
I was trying to find the mute button on my side. Like, where is it at? I'm trying to cough.
I think that there's definitely a market for as much content as you possibly can for people, but whether or not that's just going to burn you out and then it just ends up not being fun is kind of the other side of that that story or whatever. So I think that that's where having at least a backlog of it, so that if we have to go on vacation or just can't make it to do whatever we're doing, that we actually get those kind of in there. And that again, this may or may not ever get distributed, or at least not watched. And then it doesn't really hurt us any to not have them watch it, but it's not
exactly
if people do start watching it and then they are getting used to a weekly routine, then that's going to be a pain in the ass. So I'm not sure I'm ready to let the viewers have that much attention.
Right.
So
nope. But yeah, I think that's all we have for the little intro. So like, if anybody does listen to us, have any comments, questions, concerns, topics we should talk about, hopefully we'll have like the email up and ready to go and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's all I have. Anything else you want to conclude with, Mike?
No, other than quality issues, don't do this yet, and this is the first time, so the quality is likely going to be less than stellar. But I guess especially the logos and stuff that are all over here. That's definitely got to change. We have not spent any time kind of arranging or making this work. So
to be honest, we spent an hour before we started recording. So
yeah.
All right. Hope you guys have a great day, night, evening, wherever you're at in the world.
Yep.
Until then, we'll see you guys later.
Yep. Have some pints with your pals.
There you go.